If you're a quarterback, all you're doing is you're working on your skills in that specific role. You're not trying to play, different roles on the field and practice your kicking. But in reality, in business, what you want to do is double down on your strengths and what you're really good at, and then build a team around you so that we can be better at what our strengths are.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled show. This is a show about people who were successful in a different career and chose to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we have Dave Wolcott. Dave, we're so glad you're here, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be here, connect with the audience, and connect with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank Dave for being on the Road Less Traveled show. Can you tell us a little bit about your former career and how long you were along that path?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's starting to get a little bit long now, but I, like probably many of the listeners, was raised in a middle-class family in Connecticut. And I'll tell you, I can remember to this day my mother's voice saying, if you don't go to school, get good grades, you're never going to get into college and get a job. Right. And that was really conventional wisdom. So I followed down that path. I went to George Washington University in DC, and then did the ROTC program, got into the Marine Corps after that. And, that was the opportunity for me to really give back and learn some additional skills that, you don't get in the corporate world, really, things like leadership, integrity, teamwork, and things like that. And spent about 4 years in the Marines, had an awesome time, and grateful to be on the show today. It's actually Veterans Day, so this is very timely. It's really a great experience. And then when I left the Marine Corps, it was interesting because I transitioned into corporate America, which transitioning from the military is actually, quite challenging for many folks out there. And I became really frustrated with the lack of purpose, the lack of mission that was really in a lot of corporate organizations, that bureaucracy and, people doing things that weren't, in keeping with having good integrity and such. So I became very frustrated with that. And then luckily in 2000, I had the opportunity to pick up a copy of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow Quadrant. And that was really a huge light bulb moment for me, right? Coming out of the military, going to corporate, and really looking at that cash flow quadrant and understanding that, you have to be a business owner and an investor if you're really going to play this game and, succeed in life. So I forged down that path and created a technology consulting business. Ran that for about 13 years, which Richard and I have some roots there, which is really cool. Used to work together as partners there. And then all during that time as well, I've been investing into alternative assets. So into things like multifamily real estate, but I invested in a lot of different asset classes in the alternative space. And, all of this learning, you have to really do, what I would call underground, right? Especially in the early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of information out there or resources available. So I was constantly, reading books, listening to podcasts, right? Finding information wherever I could. And eventually, through that, 15 years of really investing in everything, as well as running businesses, I created Pantheon, which is essentially my business too. Oftentimes entrepreneurs build a business from, which is a business that they know, right? Because they come from some type of background and they transition that. But for me, Pantheon is everything, is really a culmination of all of my experiences and my learnings. and kind of transitioning now into a place where I can really help others and really, have a huge, much greater impact on sharing all of these different experiences, different tactics and strategies. And so that's where we are today. And essentially that's in the book. We have a book called The Holistic Wealth Strategy, came out last year, and really encompasses all of that experience.
Oh, that's great.
Excellent. We'll put a link to your book in our show notes. So that's great. And Dave, well, first, thank you for your service. And then second of all, happy Veterans Day. We're recording on Veterans Day. It'll release a little later on, but again, that's great. And appreciate what you've done.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So Dave, and again, just to go back, touch on two things. First of all, again, Cashflow Quadrant, fantastic book, absolutely mind-opening. Again, really, it's sort of a 2.0, or sort of like the continuation of the the Rich Dad story. And again, I think it's a very valuable book to read. Highly recommended it. Talking about the 4 quadrants. And again, you're right. You have to be on the BNI quadrant to be able to generate wealth. There's some people that are able to do it as ease, and God bless them, and that's great. But again, the better way to actually generate wealth is really by being a business owner and an investor. And again, on the investors front, it's crazy. People call real estate alternative investing, which is so ridiculous. So ridiculous because in all reality, real estate, I think, was around first before stocks, which are basically pieces of paper. I think real estate was here first. So, why is that called an alternative investment? I guess in a way, maybe the simple answer is that just people don't understand it and don't understand how you can do well and make money investing in real estate. So anyway. So Dave,
right. And also, just to add to that, Richard, I think, that's not where Wall Street is making their money, right? You've got this multi-trillion-dollar financial services industry that wants you to think that the only place you can put your capital is with them. And yes, they have some exposure to markets and REITs and such like that, but certainly not into, private investments, or if you're earlier on the curve, doing fix and flips or rentals or whatever those types of strategies are. But it's designed that way for a purpose.
Absolutely right. And we're constantly fed a barrage of propaganda that says this is the only way to invest. And it's reinforced by the fact that when you are investing in a 401k through your employer, if you have a W-2 job, you have limited choices of where you can put your money. And that is simply the rules of the plan that are trying to funnel and direct money into equities, into stocks and bonds, things like that, into those limited choices you have. Whereas, when you do learn about what else is out there, there's a whole host of things, and you don't have to be a millionaire to invest in a lot of these things at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Dave, back to your early days and, being a Marine or perhaps in corporate America. And then ultimately, before you started your first business, is there a funny story along the way, something that made you scratch your head and say, oh, wow, I got to change. I got to do something else?
Well, we had triplets.
Oh,
how about that for funny?
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. Before you go on real quick, just again, it's back to Bill. He talks about the reticular activating system. I have twins. Bill has twins, and now you have triplets. Wow, that's crazy. So triplets.
One up us.
Yeah.
No,
that's right.
Yeah, there's always someone in the multiple world that can one up you, and then you realize how lucky you really are.
Yeah.
It really was, right. We had a toddler, who was about 2. And thought we were just going to have the second one. And, sure enough, we went into that first ultrasound and holy cow, this is stuff you read about in the newspaper, people having triplets. We were just absolutely bowled over. My wife, we were standing there at the ultrasound and my wife said to me, she said, "You should see the look on your face." And I said, "You should see the look on your face." And she was actually laying down, at least, But that was, that was pretty intense to get that news. And, I mean, we are so grateful for the kids. It's been a phenomenal experience. Yeah. They've all just launched into, schools and careers, or out of schools now. Right. And, phenomenal experience. But what was very pivotal for me was to realize that, I had gone through, having success in the corporate ladder and all of that. But, talking to all these financial planners about wealth building, at the end of the day, no one could tell me something different than the market's going to go up, the market's going to go down, but you're going to make 7% in the long haul. And we have this thing called accumulation theory, which is build up enough assets so that, by the time you're 65, you're going to withdraw at a rate of 4% and then start to kill your golden goose, over that time. And so I guess, the entrepreneur in me was like, look, I mean, I really have to dispel that. I have to figure out a hack, another way, because I've got 4 kids I have to, feed and clothe for the next 18 years, then send them to college, in addition to, the other things that we want to do. So that was a massive, motivator for me at that time.
Yeah, just real quick. Again, I have a very similar story. Older daughter, who was probably 2.5 by the time we found out that we were having twins. That was the shock of our life. Absolutely, absolutely unexpected. Yeah. My wife and I drove home in stunned silence, where we're like, what just happened? And at one point the ultrasound technician did tease us and did mention the triplet word, and it turned out it was one of them had just moved so fast it was but it was twins. So yeah, wow,
nice,
crazy.
That's awesome.
Well, did that sound like it was part of the decision, like you said, to just create more wealth, and you saw the financial, expenditures ahead, I guess, in your future? Was there anything else that kind of changed your mind or helped you decide on a particular path to go down?
Well, I think, Bill, right. And this is the other interesting thing for me about reading that book, Cashflow Quadrant, and some of Kiyosaki's work. And as I started to look into other work, but it was not just about, they gave some conceptual advice, right, for you to kind of get your head around, but there's no practical advice or roadmap to say, hey, this is the blueprint of the wealthy, this is what you should be doing, really. And for me, what resonated was it's really about freedom, right? And not necessarily only freedom of money, but it's also freedom of purpose, freedom of location, freedom of relationship, to work with, who you want to work with. And so, those became, I think that was really my strongest driver, is right, trying to get those 4 freedoms and create those in my life. And if I put all my money in a 401k or work for a company, I have no control. I have no control over my money. I have no control over the taxes that are happening. In my business today, I choose who I get to partner with. I choose, who our investors are, who we want to work with. We only work with people who have a growth mindset and are really wanting to take their lives to the next level. If people don't get it, then, it's not a good fit. So, striving for those freedoms has been incredibly powerful for me. And again, it's really not just about money. Once you move past, financial security, and you look at some of these other things, it's quite empowering.
It makes all the difference in the world, right? Doing something you love every day with people you like to work with. I mean, it's a totally different mindset than, the corporate job where you just have to go in there. There's, not the TPS reports from Office Space, but there's always layers of bureaucracy that doesn't quite make sense to a lot of people from the outside. So yeah, I think it's huge being able to do something you're really passionate about. I mean, just for, again, feeling fulfilled with what you're doing versus just, providing income.
Absolutely, Bill. And, if you really think about it, right? I mean, think about what is really money to you, right? We all want to grow our wealth, and we want to have more wealth, but really I encourage, investors and people to really think past that, Because what does it really mean? If I gave you whatever your number is, if you had 10 million in the bank, or you had 20 million or 50 million, what does that really afford you? And, a lot of it comes back to, what is your vision? Right. And I love to really ask people, it's like, if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing? Where would you be? And who would you be with? And a lot of times, we all get caught up in daily life, and we're not really thinking about what is that vision that we have for ourselves. So, that vision could be, maybe creating a charity or something and being able to, be part of the community and giving back. That could be a big driver. Maybe it's having more quality time with your family, right, and friends than you do, working 60 hours a week and things like that, right? So it's interesting that if you can really kind of focus on those, get really clear on your vision and what that is, sometimes it actually doesn't even take money, right? It can just be a matter of maybe changing your habits, right? Changing some of your beliefs and some of the things. So you can start to put yourself on a trajectory of living your vision even sooner than you thought.
I think it's so important to know what you're really going for, like you said, versus everybody thinks they've been told they need, a certain number, 3 million to retire, 5 million to retire, whatever it is, but they don't really understand why they're achieving that, other than if it's just conventional wisdom, like you're saying, without any real reflection on why that's important to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave. So as you look back, and again, you were Marine, corporate America, successful tech company that you wound up selling, excuse me. And then you moved over to Pantheon. Were there some obstacles that you encountered along the way when you were getting Pantheon going?
I think there's always challenges in business, right? And it's all just about how you handle challenges, right? And it's having that leadership to make the right decisions and do the right thing. And especially, that's what's great about being an entrepreneur in this country, today, right? Is that, you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and know you've made the right decisions, right? Sometimes you're walking away from, maybe you leave money on the table or whatever, but you can carry yourself in an ethical way, right? That will come back in spades to you. We also have, part of our corporate culture is having a serve others first mentality. So any way that we can, serve our partners, serve our investors, is just like core to everything we do. And have there been challenges? Yes, there's definitely challenges along the way. As you know, real estate is very, capital intensive, right? So capital is always tied up, but it's all about being, creative and, working with what you have and working with, great people, and just pushing through those barriers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Dave, can you recall what your first victory was after you started Pantheon? There was something that solidified that you'd made the right choice and you were headed down the right track?
Well, it was probably my first raise that we did, and had actually, I think that's how we connected with you guys, had worked with Joe Fairless at Ashcroft, and that was our first raise. So had an opportunity to partner with Joe, right, who I think everyone in the industry knows well, had some great assets, and I had people that believed in me and what I could do and what we were putting together. So that was definitely one of the first wins. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So, Dave, is there a humorous story that you could share along the way with Pantheon? Anything that's struck you funny?
Well, we try to have having a good sense of humor, I think, is great, always in business and with your family. Nothing really jumps out in terms of something, unforgettable, in terms of something that was, really funny, but, it's all about just, again, enjoying and loving what you do and having that energy, because when you have that expansion of those 4 freedoms, you really are living your purpose, right? And it's such a difference versus going to work or going to a business that you're struggling in. There's a lot of uncertainty, for instance. But now it's, I'm creating my goals for the next 25 years. And what we're looking to do, personally, with the company, how we're growing our team, how we're scaling our team. So we're having fun along the way, and just living such an intentional life, which is really phenomenal.
That's great. Well, to that point then, Dave, where are you today on your journey? I mean, you said as you're growing your team, and where do you see yourself going with your firm?
Well, I think there's some pretty large potential out there. I think in the future, we're looking at potentially hitting 50 million per year in terms of capital raised. That is the vision of trying to get to that. And we're also trying to bring, basically our model is trying to, because walking in the shoes of a limited investor myself, and trying to build a portfolio, right? Our model is to bring this entire alternative strategy around wealth building that includes working with great partners such as yourselves that are best in class operators that are out there, having some diversification in terms of markets, right? Carolina markets are awesome, but there's some other great markets out there as well. Phoenix, Florida, right? As we all know. So having some diversification in your markets, also looking at some different asset types. So things like, self-storage, right, is very powerful to add to your portfolio. Some operators might specialize in Class A or new development, and others might look at, Class B or Class C. So I think creating that variety in your portfolio is really powerful. And then, we also pride ourselves again on this holistic wealth strategy by putting other pieces in place that really have this, effect of multiplicity, things like infinite banking policy, right? Where you can have security and liquidity, so that you have that dry powder to go and invest when there is that opportunity, right? You can grow things with a tax savings. You can do things, put the same dollar and leverage them twice, as we all know that real estate has that power of multiplicity. So by putting all of these things in place, it can really yield, exponential results in your wealth journey.
That's great. And we say that all the time too. If people approach that, they had $500,000 to invest. Same advice. You want geographic diversity, sponsor diversity. Not all your eggs in one basket. I think that only makes sense as far as a risk mitigation standpoint. Pick strong markets and proven players, but I would spread that around, just like you're saying. And you have even the other advantage, not even the same asset class, but even different asset classes in different geographical areas. So that adds a lot of diversity to someone's portfolio. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And another thing to that, Bill, is also just looking at things that are non-correlated to the markets. Right. Especially where we are right now, right? We know there's a lot of moving parts, and how can you rest at night? I mean, I had an investor a few weeks ago with, what was happening in China with Evergrande, and hey, my portfolio dropped 3% overnight because of, a Chinese conglomerate. I mean, how does that make any sense in terms of, your strategy and what you're doing? And how do you have any control? You have absolutely, no control over that versus, if you have, a certain amount of capital and infinite banking, right? You can never lose your money, right? You can never lose money. It's secure. And then you talk about real estate, as you said, it's been one of the, oldest asset classes that's been around forever. It just doesn't move, like that, right? And it's very slow and steady can win the race.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Dave, is there something that you or your company do to give back in terms of just trying to help others in some fashion, some way?
Yeah, so great question, Richard. And I know you guys just put a foundation together, which is really awesome. So, bravo to you guys. I think that's really cool. As I was talking about, I love to live life in our company very intentionally. So everything we do is very well thought out and has a plan. So in addition to, my time in the Marines and serving there, we have some plans. I'm keeping it under wraps for now, but in 2022, we're going to have something exciting come out along those lines. So really, really excited about that right now.
That's awesome, Dave. I think you're right. We kind of take the view and perspective that says that, listen, we are very, very blessed in our lives. And we really feel like we have a duty and a responsibility to do something to help others. So your secret plan, that's great. Please keep us posted. We'd love to hear more and when you're able to talk more about it. So that's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh. Well, Dave, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that's allowed you to scale faster or achieve some of your goals, whether it be a routine or a CRM or just strategies or think groups or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, I highly, advocate, masterminds and always, surrounding yourself with, like-minded folks at a higher level. And one of the things I've had tremendous success with, I'm going on my 4th year now, actually, is the entrepreneurial program called Strategic Coach, which is an elite coaching program for entrepreneurs. It's based in Canada, but there's folks, all over the US. And we like to call it thinking about your thinking. So it's really using strategic thinking tools to think about your business objectively. So you can be working on your business instead of working in your business. And that group meets on a quarterly basis. And I've just experienced such, phenomenal growth, like personally as well as professionally. You're in a room of, 30 other, hard charging entrepreneurs that were selected to even, get into the group. And the insights and the collaboration that you get from those folks is really powerful.
Nice.
Yeah. It was a strategic coach, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll look into that. Very good.
Yeah.
So Dave, what advice would you give somebody who's considering making a path change?
The first thing is really, it's all about understanding yourself, Richard, right? The more you can understand yourself, and again, there's so much conventional wisdom out there, right? Which is, for instance, we have to wear all these hats and do the best we can across like multiple different areas, right? But in reality, in business, right, what you want to do is double down on your strengths and what you're really good at, and then build a team around you for people to do the other things that you don't like to do or you don't really do well. For instance, I don't like doing projects around the house. So I don't spend my weekends, doing that. If I was going to spend time, I'd rather be, on my business or having quality time with my friends. There's actually a test that I think is really excellent and nobody has really heard of it before. It's kind of the foundation of that strategic coach. It's called Kolbe, Kolbe, and you can do Kolbe.com. And you can take this quick 20-minute assessment around it's all around your co-native abilities they talk about, which is essentially your instinctual wiring and how you're wired. So for instance, as an entrepreneur, can you take an idea and completely run with it? Or are you someone who likes to really get into the details? You're kind of risk averse and things like this. But the more you can really understand about yourself, and figuring out any blind spots you have, and also just understanding those strengths so that we can be better at what our strengths are. And think about top athletes in the world, right? I mean, if you're a quarterback, right, all you're doing is you're working on your skills in that specific role. You're not trying to play, different roles on the field and practice your kicking, right, on Fridays, things like that, right? So I think, it's really good advice, and we mastermind with our family, and I talk to my kids have all kind of left college, and we talk about this a lot, about really understanding yourself and your strengths, and then how you can apply that.
Nice.
Great. Yeah. Excellent advice. Yeah. Well, Dave, what's the best way for our listeners to be able to reach you and learn more about Pantheon?
Sure. If folks are interested, they can actually download a free copy of our book on the website. So it's just pantheoninvest.com/wealth-strategy.
Great. Yeah, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Well, Dave, thank you so much for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. We really enjoyed the conversation and wish you continued success.
Really grateful to be here, gentlemen. Appreciate the opportunity. And again, a big shout out to those veterans who've served or are serving out there on this special day.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Dave, we'd like to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show. We really appreciate you taking time. We also like to thank our audience. Listeners, please continue to give us 5-star ratings so we can bring you more great content like Dave Wolcott today. Please also, we'd like to thank our show sponsors. Park Capital Partners sponsors the show. Also, the Park Capital Partners Foundation, a 501c nonprofit is sponsors, as well as we now have the Park Capital Value Add Fund. Please certainly reach out, and thanks for joining. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.